At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. Whether it's a walk-off grand slam or a base hit to center field. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast. It's Friday the 10th of May, which means it's time for our Friday 5, where we look at the top 5 stories making the headlines at Forest this week. In a moment, I'll be joined by Adam, but first it's over to Jamie Martin for the news roundup.
Hi, this is Jamie Martin with your top 5 Forest stories from the 1865 news desk. Now, the headline to this week's news: Nottingham Forest have been unsuccessful in their points deduction appeal. Following over a month's worth of wait, Nottingham Forest discovered their fate regarding their points deduction appeals, which saw them lose 4 points following a £35 million PSR breach last season, or in the last period. Despite mainstream media sources discussing the situation with optimism, with some saying the Reds may receive points back, the final answer from the Independent Commission was an adamant no. Forest received no points back and also questioned, and the Commission questioned, how Forest forensically examined the minor details of the case. A strange statement for an appeal that relies on small details that are forensically examined by the club's legal team. Forest now sits 17th, still with 3 points separating them and the bottom 3, which consists of already relegated Sheffield United and then Burnley and Luton also. Forest's appeal wasn't successful, and the process has been questioned and remains to be questioned by the club and supporters. But now a huge final 2 fixtures remain, which could see Forest survive or drop. Chelsea and Burnley, a massive couple of weeks. In other news though, related to the City Ground, Toton is being seen as a serious option if Forest leave the City Ground. It's an ongoing saga between the council and Nottingham Forest, and since the council's bankruptcy, the need to raise funds has been the priority, but it's now brought their relationship with Nottingham Forest to a hostile impasse, with the club considering its other options. In an exclusive interview with The Athletic this week, Chairman Tom Cartledge said that no commissioners from the council had approached him or the club, and that Forest were continuing in their due diligence of other sites, one of those being the former site, the planned HS2 development, which never went ahead in Toton. With the local government needing to offload the site, Forest could look to make the move, abandon the City Ground revamp and make a brand new 50,000 seats stadium 6 miles west of the city centre. With no idea, well, there's no idea 100% set in stone, Toton was described as a serious option for a move for the club, and unless the council moved quickly, Forest could secure another site elsewhere. Also in the report, it states that Forest have not made a move as of yet to buy the training ground land, and have also stalled on that as well. New reports coming out this afternoon, just after the script was written for this, revealed that Nottingham Forest had made no communication to the council back in regards to negotiations. So at the moment, it's all at a bit of a crossroads, and more updates are expected soon. Now, the third piece of news this week: Mark Clattenburg has resigned from his post at Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest board advisor Mark Clattenburg has officially quit his City Ground post following his role causing what has been described as unintended friction between the club and other participants, as well as being targeted by pundits and others within the public eye, so he claims. After assuming the role in February 2024, Mark Clattenburg oversaw an abundance of fixtures, mainly lined with controversy, presenting him the challenge of describing the issue and building a relationship between the club and the PGMOL. However, things didn't quite go to plan, and just a couple of weeks after the Everton incident, Mr Clattenburg left his role, describing his consultancy services as causing more hindrance than good for Nottingham Forest, an outcome for which he did not desire when taking on the role in February. Mr Clattenburg now resumes his work as a columnist for the Daily Mail and does continue to analyse refereeing performances, this time though more in the media. It is unclear as to what his next career step will be in football, but for now it remained in the media, and it's been an interesting couple of months for the club and Mark Clattenburg. Now, some pre-summer transfer news. Forest have reportedly inquired about a Cape Verde defender. Nottingham Forest have reportedly already started their transfer work for the summer, and with a number of defenders leaving or out of contract, the club are now said to be pursuing a league-earned defender. According to French outlet Get French News Now, league-earned defender Logan Costa, who currently plays for Toulouse, is being looked at by Nottingham Forest as a potential addition to the back line, which sees Felipe retire, McKenna depart at the expiration of his contract, Bolly potentially leaving after his contract expires, and Murillo's stardom possibly on the move elsewhere. The centre-back established himself in the first team this season, with Diego Simeone also said to be a huge admirer, a compliment for any defender, and with the fast 6'2" defender in high regard. Fulham, Villarreal and other unnamed Premier League clubs have also inquired about the in-regard defender. Costa is bound to leave the French side this summer, but to who remains a mystery. With Forest needing more defenders this summer, it would be a solid addition to Forest's back line. And finally, in relation to news, last week Forest have done the double over Sheffield United. For the first time in 20 years, Forest did the double over Sheffield United in the league in a season, beating them both home and away in what could be described as, despite the win, two shaky encounters. Sheffield United were the first to score after Montiel gave away a poor penalty from what looked to be a slip near the edge of the box on Brereton Diaz. The ex-Forest forward slotted it past Sels, not holding back on his celebrations as he looks to impress before heading back to his parent club Villarreal in July. United overloaded the midfield and kept creating chances, but a mixture of goals, good saves and stunning interceptions kept the Blades at bay. Eventually, Forest got an opportunity when Danilo found the ball on the edge of the box. He didn't shoot and instead opted for Hudson-Odoi to his left, and despite the bounce on the touch, the English star fired it past Fotheringham in style, equalising before half-time. Ryan Yates' is in the box volley was superb also, a goal to put his side back in the lead in his first Premier League goal, only the 9th player to score in all top 5 divisions in England. Hudson-Odoi then blunted the Blades, finally, as he used his trademark cutting and finished with finesse, leaving Fotheringham with no chance at saving the shot. 3-1, and despite a nervy first half, the Reds secured 3 huge points in their first away win since Boxing Day, and that was the first time since 2003-04 season that Nottingham Forest had done the double over Sheffield United in a season. So that is the latest from the 1865 News Desk. I'm Jamie Martin. Be sure to catch up with me on social media via JamieMartin_journalist on Instagram, as my X/Twitter account is currently facing some issues. Hopefully back soon, but for now, updates still on Nottingham Forest related news throughout the week. Take care. Speak to you soon.
Thank you, Jamie, for the news roundup. So let's have a look at some of those stories in more detail. And I've got Adam with me to do just that. Starting, Adam, with Forest's unsuccessful appeal against their points deduction for breaching PSR rules. And we found out this week, eventually, that Forest's 4-point deduction will stand. They will not be receiving any further points back after an appeal. The appeal was rejected. It means that Forest are still 17th in the table, with 3 points separating them from the bottom 3. Are you surprised that Forest haven't got any points back, or were you expecting this?
No, I'm not surprised at all, really. I think that it's a very much a loaded situation. It's not as simple as just saying, well, Forest breached it, so because they breached it, points deduction, that's it. there's more to it than that. Forest's case was that they were in constant contact with the Premier League to essentially say that we might breach the rules because we're trying to get a figure for Brennan Johnson, who we are looking to sell. We just want to get the full market value for him. So I think my biggest complaint about this process is that we've gone through weeks of not knowing. We've gone through, oh, you're going to get told on this day, and then it's a week later, and it's over a week later, and then we all of a sudden find out after we beat Sheffield United. Now, I don't buy into all of the conspiracy theory stuff and that. The decision was made last week. They knew what it was going to be. I don't know why they wouldn't have announced it though. That was the biggest confusing point to me, is why not announce it? You know what you're going to do. You know you're not going to give us points back. You've been very stern on the fact that because we broke the rules, and we did, the points are there. My biggest frustration is the time limit, but it's also the actual hearings and the process itself. Because you go to the board, the people that are actually making this decision, that are on this like panel, they're not given anything to go off. They're not given this thing will incur this punishment. So if you go over by X amount, you'll get this many points deducted, or this is what we think would be fair. We had one person say it was fair, we should get 12-point deduction, one person say an 8-point, and then the Premier League said it's 4. And that board of people have got to sit there, siphon through the information and say, well, do we give them the points back or not? And respectfully, they've got no idea. Because, yes, we did break the rule, but our claim is that we were in constant contact with the Premier League. So if we broke the rule, is it by how much we broke the rule? So if we broke it by 35 million quid, is 35 million quid 4 points then? Is that the deduction? Because if it is, then anyone that breaks it by that much should get that much deducted. So if Everton broke it by, I don't know how much their figure is, obviously, but over 100 million, I think it was, they should have got, what, 12? In the end, they might have got a 12-point deduction, right? But then they got some points back. So if you're going to do this, and if you're going to punish clubs, that's fine, because it's the rules and you have to follow the rules. And I understand that, but you've got to make it clear to the clubs, and you've got to say, look, if you go over by this much, you'll get this deduction. If you go over by this much, you'll get that deduction. The only reason they haven't done that is because if they said that to Man City might go, well, we'll just go over by that much because we'll win the league by 6 points. So we're not so bothered. They don't want to set a dangerous precedent to the clubs, but by the same time they're doing that, they're actually just making it unclear to fans, unclear to clubs, unclear to the people that sit on the board making these decisions. There's no consistency with it. And I think as a fan, that is the most frustrating thing.
And the whole process paints nobody in a good light at the Premier League or at the Independent Commission, because this has been allowed to rumble on for weeks. You mentioned it not long ago that this decision was probably made last week, and for some reason they decided to not announce it until this week. Now, conspiracy theorists will say that's because it makes the relegation race or relegation fight more interesting by taking it into another week and following Forest's win at Sheffield United on Saturday. I'm not saying that is what's happened, but when these kind of events play out, they're almost opening themselves up to those kind of questions being asked, aren't they?
I think they are, yeah. And there's always going to be people that have got their opinions and stuff. I accept that. I think for me, I've gone from the more, it's an independent panel that have made the decision whether we get the points back or not. This independent panel has got absolutely no interest in Sky Sports' TV schedule for the run-in, right? And I think us not getting points back doesn't change the situation massively. You've still got Burnley that have got to go away and get some at Tottenham. Tottenham have lost, 3-4 games on the bounce. They are absolutely not going to want to lose their last home game of the season to a team that's struggling down the bottom. They're not going to. People say, oh, they've got nothing to play for. They actually do still have something to play for. They're in the European race. They do absolutely have something to play for. And then you've got Burnley, Luton have got to go away to West Ham, who again have got their own European aspirations. They've got Moyes' last game at home. I'd be very surprised if either of them won their game. And if both of them lose, we are safe anyway. I know that mathematically there's a 12-point swing. If Luton win 13-0 against Fulham and we lose to Burnley, then that is the. I mean, what are we talking about?
I'm just going to give up football if that happens.
Exactly. I'm done then. I can't follow football anymore if that happens. So I think that's why the conspiracy about the Premier League wanting it to be kind of more of a television spectacle for Sky Sports kind of loses a bit of steam for me, because it's like, well, I think the timing of the decision was really stupid, and going like, oh, we'll wait till after this weekend's fixtures, because it seems calculated then. It seems like you were waiting for it. If Forest had drew with Sheffield United, would we have got points back? No, of course we wouldn't. The decision was already made. But it's going to have people speculating, and people are going to naturally assume these things. So it's an absolute mess. From the top to bottom, the Premier League is an utter shambles at the moment. And I'm not going to talk about Man City and Chelsea not being punished and stuff, because we all know they're not going to be punished. We all know if Man City got 12-point deduction, it's going to affect them to the point where they might finish second or third in the league. They won't win the league for 1 year, and then they'll be able to go spend money again. Right? If Man City got the book thrown at them, like Forest have been, like Everton have been, then Man City would be playing football in the National League North next year. But that isn't going to happen, is it? So I think that for now, we'll keep the conspiracy theories where they are and stuff. And in 10 years, if there's a Netflix documentary about it, then I'll eat my words after that.
Let's move on to the second story that Jamie brought us then, and a story which came out this morning, and it's about Forest's stadium saga. And this story suggesting that Toton and the proposed new stadium at Toton could be a serious option if Forest were to leave the City Ground. Now, this is a article which was published by Danny Taylor in The Athletic this morning, an interview with Forest chairman Tom Cartledge about the ongoing impasse between Forest and the City Council and stadium redevelopment and potential master plans. Now, Tom Cartledge has told The Athletic that the club continues to be frustrated. He says that neither the leader of the council, the CEO, nor any of the commissioners appointed by central government in the wake of Nottingham City Council's financial turmoil have reached out to the club and tried to get things going with this proposed City Ground redevelopment. As a result, the club have said that this Toton sidings proposal on the far western side of Nottingham could be a serious option for the club in the future should they move. It's fair to say, Adam, that this has created a real backlash, certainly on social media. As soon as the story came out, fans saying that this was a terrible idea and it's a bad move from the club if they do end up going through with these Toton proposals. How do you see it? Is this a bit of grandstanding to try and get the council to pull their finger out, essentially, from Forest's point of view, and try and get things moving with the City Ground redevelopment?
Yeah, so I think, look, we're all probably of a very similar opinion, but if I'm going to look at this objectively from the club's perspective, I'm sure the club are maybe looking at this thinking, look, we've given you our plan. We've said what we want to do with the ground. We said how we want to develop it. We want to develop the area around the ground. So like have to deal with the boat club and all that sort of stuff. And, all of the, like they're going to put bars, restaurants in, whatever. They're going to make it like this complex of like Forest and make the ground nicer and make the ground better and all that kind of thing. So, and the council have knocked them back previously. And the boat club and the union have been a bit of an issue previously. I think that maybe the club are frustrated by that. And I think that the club maybe look at examples around England. So you've got Arsenal, who moved from Highbury to the Emirates, and that just grew their profile. It mean that they can have more fans in the ground. Derby moved from the baseball ground to Pride Park. Man City from Main Road to the Etihad. There are examples of it working in a sense, but then there are examples of it where you actually rip the heart and soul out of a football club. I'm more looking at maybe West Ham, and then you've got clubs that have gone neutral, where Tottenham, for example, it's not gone well and it's not gone badly. It's gone very neutrally, very down the middle. So this move could go in a lot of different ways. So I understand the club's frustration, but I understand where the club are coming from, thinking, well, actually, what we'll do is we'll scrap this. If you don't want to work with us, then don't work with us, and we'll go and build our own ground, and we'll build a 50,000 seater stadium. My issues with it is that, one, you are ripping the heart and soul out of the club. The City ground is synonymous with Forest. You know, we sing a song before the game starts about the City ground. We sing that home and away. You are going to rip the heart and soul out of our football club if you want to move us from our spiritual home, which is there. Another thing is, Toton is a terrible choice, objectively. And that's nothing against Toton. It's a nice area. The problem is that, but other than the tram to Toton Lane, the transport would be horrendous. You have got right now. You've got a situation where fans, most of the away fans, will come to Clifton, park up and stuff, and get the tram in or something like that, and you can do that really easily. And one proposed move was actually having the ground in Clifton, which again would make a lot more sense to me. You know, you're on a better transport links, you can get in and out a bit easier than Toton. It's a muddled idea. It's going to cost an absolute fortune. Now I understand that other clubs like Everton, for example, might feel like they've grown out of Goodison, so they're moving to this new ground. They hope it's going to take the club to the next level, and I get that argument. But I don't know if other clubs have the same roots and the same feeling towards their home ground like we do. And I don't think you can look at Forest and compare us to other clubs because we're just so different.
Yeah.
So for me, I have to question someone that says he's a Forest fan that wants to move to Toton to build a 50,000 seater stadium, when realistically, if God forbid we went down, how many fans are going to be in that 50,000 seater stadium in the Championship? And I know that they don't think like that, but you've got to have this contingency plan in place. And at the moment, it's just the council aren't playing ball, so we're going to take our ball and we're going to go and we're going to just build a stadium somewhere else. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think the fans will accept it. And it just seems like a really bad idea. And I want to take the club to the next level as much as they do. But sometimes you have to sort of temper your ambition and go, look at where we are right now. He sacked Steve Cooper because this season he wanted us to get into the top 10. And then the season after challenge for Europe and the season after being the champion. It does not happen like that. You cannot put the cart before the horse. You have to just establish yourself as a Premier League club and then take it from there. We're not an established Premier League club yet, so let's just calm down a bit.
And I'm going to just come on the back of those words there, Adam, with an update to the story. And Danny Taylor has released an update saying that the City Council have released a statement off the back of Tom Cartledge's comments, and it says that it's Forest and not the council who have stalled the talks. They say the City ground lease has been discussed for a long time now, and it's important to say again that the council remains committed to finding a solution which works for both parties. Unfortunately, we've had little back from the club recently by way of negotiation. This is highly unusual in a property transaction. So it's very much two sides to the story here. And I honestly don't know which way to look. It's just, it just feels like we're not going to get a new stadium. We're not going to get new stands at the City ground. And this could rumble on for years and years the way it's going.
I think the truth will probably lie somewhere in the middle, won't it? I think that the council are obviously going to say it's not them. Forest are going to blame the council. If I'm being the cynical side of me, maybe thinks that Forest want to build a new stadium and the ownership wants to build a new ground because they want to be the next Man City or the next Tottenham and they want to be at that level. And they seem romanticised with the idea of building a new ground. So I do actually think there's partial truth to that side of things, that the ownership does want to build a new stadium, but they need to be very careful with how they do this, because if they just keep arguing with the council and then they go put their hands up and say, well, a solution couldn't be reached, we couldn't do anything. If that's not true and you're lying to your fans, I just think that there's going to be this bad blood from the fan base to the ownership. And we'll still get people come to the ground because we're a Premier League club. As long as we're a Premier League club, we'll probably sell out most home games. It's just, do you really want to alienate the fans that have been there since League One, since the Championship, by turning us into this big commercial entity? And that's kind of what I'm concerned about, worried about. And I think with the council, we don't know what to believe. We don't know what they're asking for. But if the truth of the matter is the rent's gone up by about £1 million a year, I don't think that will be true, because that seems very trivial that they're going to argue with that. But if that is true, you've really got to question the club and where they're at with this and why they're going to argue about that. But unfortunately, we don't know, and we're probably never going to know the exact numbers.
I think as well, the timing of this story is far from ideal. It's a week where Forest are building up to a massive game on Saturday at home to Chelsea, where a positive result would secure Premier League safety. And we've also just put to bed the whole points deduction saga. As soon as that's finished with, we've got another saga making its way into the headlines and getting the fans talking, getting fans divided, and actually fans turning on the club, which is the last thing we need when we are still fighting for survival and trying to fight for Premier League status.
We just need a bit of a quiet couple of weeks. I mean, this is all the time, and you've got to. And look, I've said before, and I've said on this podcast before, that when we appointed Nuno, I think Glasner was the right option. I stick by that, and but right now I feel so bad for Nuno and the players, because they can't just concentrate on what's going on a Saturday. They've got all of this swirling around the club, and it can't be helpful for them. And look, like I say, I think we'll probably stay up without having to get another point, but on the off chance that Luton and West Ham win at 3:00 on Saturday, and we're now level on points with them going into the Chelsea game, all eyes and all focus has got to be on that. And it's got to be on that 90 minutes of football. There's a new distraction every week. And I think most Forest fans will say the same thing. I can't wait for the season to be over, because then these distractions can just be talk throughout the summer. They don't have to be distracting from the game on the pitch. And I think that's what my concern and a lot of fans' concerns is going to be.
At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.
Like all of our podcasts this season, this episode of 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast, is sponsored by Greene King Sport, where football is more than a game. Make Greene King your go-to destination for the season's final stretch. But why? Well, for one, you can wash every televised Forest game down with delicious food and refreshing beverages. And with 900 sports pubs dotted around the UK, chances are you're within walking distance of your local Greene King. Let's be honest, watching football is way better with friends and family, so get the squad together for every televised Premier League fixture in an atmosphere worth sharing. That includes huge title showdowns, huge, the race for European qualification, and nail-biting relegation six-pointers, unfortunately involving our very own Nottingham Forest. Don't forget to download the Greene King Sport app to enjoy exclusive competitions and discounts whenever there's a game on. Now it's back to your podcast.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast.
Welcome back to this week's Friday 5 from the 1865 Nottingham Forest Podcast. And let's pick up with the rest of the stories that Jamie brought us at the top of the show in his news roundup. So next is the story around Mark Clattenburg, and he has resigned from his position at Forest. He was referee and analyst and board member. He was brought in to give Forest some background, some support in terms of understanding refereeing decisions, and also potentially creating a bridge between Forest and the PGMOL around appeals and understanding refereeing decisions. Clattenburg was only at the club for 77 days, 11 games, and in his parting statement, he suspected that Forest were getting a harsher ride from the PGMOL than before his appointment. That's something I would agree with, and I think it brings to an end a very short but controversial association with Clattenburg and Forest, doesn't it, Adam?
Yeah, I think the appointment itself was, I think, what I would call an experiment by the club. They were seeing if appointing someone that's a very well respected official in the English game, they thought maybe actually if we appoint him, not only does that give us a bridge, like you say, from us to PGML and the Referees Association or whatever it might be, it actually helps us understand the way that it works. It helps us understand decisions and whether we're, in a word, being right and fair, or we're being over dramatic, or is it the rub of the green? The Forest wanted an understanding. They felt like bringing in someone like that would give them a better understanding. And like you say, it turns out, unfortunately, it actually just put a target on our back, really, to say, look at them. They're not happy with how we're doing things. They've had to bring in an experienced referee to make sense of what we're doing. And look, you'd like to think that the PGMOL and Premier League officials wouldn't take any notice of this appointment. You'd like to think that they would treat Forest the exact same way as they treat the other 19 Premier League clubs. Unfortunately, it might be a coincidence, but it doesn't seem to have lined up that way. And the appointment has failed. I understand why the club did it, though, and I completely understand that, like I say, it was probably a bit of almost like a fact-finding mission. Is this something that's going to work for Premier League clubs in the future? And if it had have worked, and it had given Forest this clarity that they wanted, and it had given Forest this understanding, and it had made the process seamless with clubs and the officials, then other clubs might have taken on board. Unfortunately, it didn't do that, but I don't think you can blame the club for trying something like that. I think what is interesting about his statement is that his eventual findings are, yeah, Forest getting more hard done by, and that's not fair. And for someone that is neutral and was neutral in the situation, that is a very daunting thing to come out and say, especially as a very respected official. So I think time will tell over the summer what happens, but I'd like to think that there'll be some conversations with the Premier League and their football clubs about what's going to change for next season.
Next story then is a transfer story, and it's surrounding a defender, Logan Costa, who plays for Toulouse in Ligue 1. Forest are reportedly interested in signing him. He's a centre-back. He's 23 years old, contracted to Toulouse until 2026, but he is expected to leave them this summer. As Jamie mentioned, Diego Simeone, Atletico Madrid boss, is a keen admirer, according to reports. Fulham are also in the hunt for him, according to those reports. But it looks like Forest are interested in signing him. It certainly suggests that Forest are looking to strengthen their backline over the summer. And I think that is a key area of the field that Forest do need to bring new faces in. Felipe, of course, will be retiring in the summer. There's a good chance we'll be losing Murillo as well. I look at a player like Logan Costa here, Adam. He feels like a potential replacement for somebody like Murillo, doesn't he?
Well, I think the club would certainly be hoping that he comes in and has the impact that Murillo had. A bit about Logan Costa as a player. He's very much a progressive passing centre-back. And I think that is a profile that the club will definitely look at. It's a lot about what Murillo does well, is those big raking passes. So it's something that Logan Costa does very well, himself. And he's 6'2", fast. He's kind of a lot of what we want in a profile, and he kind of fits what we look for as well. I don't think he'll cost an awful lot of money coming out of Toulouse. and then you've got his contract's coming up in 2026. So, like you say, only 2 years left on his deal. I don't know. I would have thought that you're not looking at a massive fee, but it's tough. I mean, I don't watch a lot of Liga and football, it must be said, but from what I do know about him is his great passing ability, and I think that the club are definitely going to be looking down, let's call it maybe the Brighton model at this point, trying to pick up players for a decent amount and potentially flip them in a couple of years. That is the model that works, and that is the model that takes clubs that were from Brighton's position up to playing in Europe, is by bringing in good talented footballers for a decent amount and selling them on for an extortionate amount of money, like what's going to happen with Murillo. So it's a good profile of player for us to be targeting for sure.
He's a Cape Verde international. He's made 26 appearances for Toulouse. The only thing I would say with him is perhaps that lack of experience coming into the Premier League could be a potential issue, because it is such an unforgiving league, and if you're not up to speed, you'll get found out very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something that we would concern ourselves with in a sense, but also Murillo hadn't played that much Premier League, well, that much football at all in his career. So and I actually think that players that are younger are actually getting more and more mature and more kind of they play beyond their years a lot more now. It's almost ingrained in the game a little bit. You know, he's made 117, 115, 120, something like that appearances, you know, in his professional career and stuff. So it's not as if he hasn't played a lot of football. He has in a very short amount of time. So I'm certainly not worried. He's also played in Europe as well. I mean, Toulouse were obviously in Liverpool's group in the Europa League this year. So he's got a lot of good pedigree and a lot of good experience at such a young age. So certainly more than other players had when they came to us. So I don't think it's something that's necessarily going to really sort of concern the club.
And we'll see what happens with that one, if anything does happen, over the summer. So the final story that Jamie brought us then, and it's Forest doing the double over Sheffield United this season. The first time in 20 years that the Reds have done the double over the Blades. It's always a nice feeling to beat them. Doubly more so in the current context, with Forest fighting relegation and Sheffield United having already gone down, and our 3-1 victory meant that they'd conceded 100 goals for the season. The win at Bramall Lane moved Forest 3 points clear of the relegation zone. 2 goals from Callum Hudson-Odoi and 1 from Ryan Yates, helping Forest to victory. A better performance from Forest, albeit against a pretty weak Sheffield United team, but it was a right result at the right time for Forest, just what was needed.
Yeah, certainly. And I think that, I mean, the home game when we played Sheffield United certainly wasn't pretty, but we won. This game, we didn't start very well at all. Penalty was completely fair. It was absolutely nailed on penalty for me. No argument whatsoever. But we reacted well. And I think that that's the important thing. We reacted well to going 1-0 down, which we don't do all the time. We don't do very often. We certainly don't do it away. So it showed a lot of character from the players. And Callum Hudson-Odoi, I mean, what can we say about him? He's not a player that's just suddenly lost all of the talent that made Bayern Munich come in for 80 million euros from Chelsea a few years ago. Like, it's his Achilles injuries that is holding back. Now, if we can keep him fit and we can keep him on the pitch for 25 games a season even, we're going to get some player there, and it's going to look like one of the biggest bargains of Forest transfer history. And it already does in a way. I mean, he's been brilliant when he's played this season. His first goal was outstanding. His second goal was brilliant. He actually went really close to scoring before that. On the day, we could have had more, really. It says a lot about Sheffield United, how they played. I mean, they just look defeated. I mean, they look down and out, and their players, as much as from a professional side, you want to play right to the end and you want to give it all every game, they just look demoralised. And I'd imagine there'd be a lot of players from Sheffield United that are coming straight back to the Premier League. Hopefully Gustavo Harmer to Forest, but we'll see how one goes. That'd be my choice, certainly. But Yeah, it ended up being fairly routine in the end, but it was such a vital win, and we desperately needed it. And credit to Nuno and the players for that one. It come at the perfect time.
And a final bit of news which has broken during our record. And Forest are adding to their recruitment team. They're appointing Pedro Ferreira, who is the current chief scout at Benfica. He'll be joining the club in the summer, and he's expected to be given the title of head of recruitment. Ferreira is Portuguese, and he's been working at Porto for the last 15 years. He previously worked with the Benfica Academy during a period when they had players such as João Felix, Renato Sanchez, and Gonçalo Ramos coming through the ranks. Nuno Tavares, another name who came through at Benfica under Ferreira. So it looks like, Adam, that Forest are strengthening their recruitment team, looking to bring in somebody different. He is Portuguese, and I'm thinking, is there some sort of relationship there with George Mendes, who is back on the scene at Forest this season? Perhaps there's a link up there, and perhaps it's an indicator of where our transfer business might be going in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly a positive one, though, for Forest fans to look at. I mean, you're talking players like Bernardo Silva, Ruben Dias, Gonzalo Ramos, Edison, João Cancelo, João Felix. You know, you're talking a lot of unbelievably talented footballers that have come through Benfica. Most of them that I've just mentioned while he was there as well. And then they've got players now like Antonio Silva, João Neves that they're obviously going to also sell on for a ridiculous fee. So you're looking at probably one of the best production lines in European football. And then you've got players like Darwin Nunez as well that they've sold for a ridiculous amount of money to Liverpool. Like what they've done really well and what they've always done is either discover young Portuguese talent and sell them on, or South American talent, like obviously Angel Di Maria came through there as well. Like they go South American talent and sell them on for a lot of money. So I think he's actually one of the. He could be a perfect appointment for Forest, and he could actually give us that Benfica model. That if you want to take a Premier League version of it, the Brighton model of, like I say, bringing players in and selling them on in a couple of years' time when they're starting to reach a bit of potential. So I think this is a hugely, hugely positive appointment, and if this helps us pick up the next João Moutinho's, the next like João Felix's, you know, like. Absolutely sign me up, because I think it's a fantastic appointment.
And let's have more João Felixes and less Odysseus Flacademos. So that brings us to the end of our news roundup. Just a quick look ahead, Adam, to Chelsea on Saturday then. It's a 5:30 kickoff. By the time that Forest kick off, we will know the state of play with Luton and Burnley. They're playing before Forest do. And there is a potential at 5:30 that Forest will be effectively safe and staying up in the Premier League. But what do you want to see from Forest going into this game against Chelsea? The same approach as Sheffield United, or do you think they'll need to play it a bit different, given that Chelsea can and do score many goals when they fancy it, and they've got players like Nicholas Jackson and Cole Palmer who can really hurt you?
I think maybe we take more of the Chelsea approach. Obviously, Chelsea and Man City, Man City are a much better side than Chelsea, and I think that's fair to say. But I think if we play like we did against Man City, I think that same idea, so the same formation with the three back and the wing backs, if we've got the players fit enough to do that, and just go play like we did against Man City, go at them at the right times, catch them on the break, catch them in that space in behind, we can really hurt Chelsea. And I think we can really hurt that Chelsea backline. You know, they've won one game this calendar year away from home. That was against Crystal Palace, and that was, before the resurgence of Crystal Palace, if you like. So I think that should give us some optimism. That should give us some hope going into this game. Obviously, we have to watch players like Cole Palmer, but you can't always focus on one individual player. We've kept quiet very good players at the City Ground this year. and I'm sure we can do it again. It's just a case of what sort of Forest turns up. I'd be looking for a similar performance like the Man City game. And I'd almost like to say this as well, and it sounds probably a little bit silly. If Luton and Burnley win, then we're basically staying up, right? I would rather the players still go out and put a performance in against Chelsea and make it mathematically impossible going into the last day, just because I know it wouldn't happen and it can't happen. But from a just from a player's perspective, they probably want to put it to bed completely. And I think that that'll be their mission against Chelsea no matter what. And I think no matter what Luton and Burnley do, we need to go into that game, like we did against City, going to beat Chelsea and not worrying about how many points we need. Just go in and try and win that game of football.
And hopefully the Forest players will approach it much like they did the game against Arsenal at the back end of last season, which secured survival that day and was a fantastic match and spots brilliant scenes at the City ground as everybody celebrated Premier League safety. We will be with you after the Chelsea game with our match report from there, so do join us for that. Let us know as well if you like our content. Search 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast, on social media, and you can also head to 1865.football for all of our links. Thanks to Jamie for the news roundup. Thanks to Adam for joining me. And thank you, listener, as well, for joining us for this Friday 5. We will see you after the Chelsea game. Until then, thanks for listening and goodbye.
Let's just calm down a bit.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.